The message came at midnight, Earth Standard Time. 40,000 humans had been taken. The colony of New Haven, a small settlement on the edge of known space, had fallen to the Valoran Dominion in less than 6 hours. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the command center of Earthfleet headquarters. His face showed no emotion as he watched the footage. Valoran soldiers marched through the streets of New Haven. Men, women, and children were pulled from their homes. Families were separated. The screams echoed through the recording. "They want to negotiate," said General Harris, standing beside him. "The Valorans say they will return our people in exchange for 3-star systems." Jack did not respond immediately. He watched as a young mother held her daughter close while Valoran guards surrounded them. The child could not have been more than 5 years old. "How long ago did this happen?" Jack asked. 16 hours. Jack turned away from the screen. His eyes were cold. "Get me Ambassador Price, and wake up the First Fleet." 3 days later, Ambassador Daniel Price arrived at Throne of Keth, the capital world of the Valoran Dominion. His shuttle descended through clouds of purple and gold. The city below stretched for thousands of miles. Towers of black stone reached toward the sky. This was the heart of an empire that had existed for 10,000 years. Daniel was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had served Earth for 30 years. He had negotiated with pirates, warlords, and tyrants. He had never failed to bring peace. But today, he was not here to make peace. The Valoran guards escorted him through the Grand Palace. The walls were covered with images of conquest. Statues of fallen enemies lined the halls. The Valarans wanted him to feel small. They wanted him to feel afraid. Daniel felt nothing but purpose. High Sovereign Maltrek sat upon a throne made from the bones of his enemies. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales of deep blue and eyes like burning coals. Around him stood his advisors, generals, and priests. They looked at Daniel the way a predator looks at prey. "So," Maltrek said, his voice rumbling like thunder, "Earth sends one man to bargain for 40,000 lives. How touching." Daniel stood straight. He did not bow. "I am Ambassador Daniel Price. I speak for the United Earth government." "Then speak," Maltrek said. "Tell me what Earth offers for the return of its lost children." "I am not here to offer anything," Daniel said. "I am here to deliver a message." Maltrek leaned forward. His eyes narrowed. "A message? You have 72 hours to release every human being you have taken. All 40,000 must be returned unharmed. If you fail to do this, you will face consequences." Silence filled the throne room. Then Maltrek began to laugh. His generals joined him. The sound echoed off the ancient walls. "Consequences?" Maltrek said. "Little human, do you know who you speak to? The Valoran Dominion has crushed 100 species. We have burned worlds and enslaved billions. What consequences could Earth possibly bring to us?" Daniel did not smile. He did not flinch. 72 hours. "You come here with no army," Maltrek continued. "No fleet. Just words. If you want your people back, you will give us what we demand. 3-star systems. Full of resources. Full of potential slaves. That is the price." "There is no price," Daniel said. "Only a warning." Maltrek stood from his throne. He towered over the human ambassador. "I could kill you right now. I could add your bones to my throne." "You could," Daniel agreed. "But it would not change what is coming." The High Sovereign studied the human for a long moment. There was something in the man's eyes. Something that made Maltrek uncomfortable. It was not fear. It was certainty. "Take him back to his shuttle," Maltrek ordered. "Let him return to Earth with our answer. We do not fear humans. We do not bow to threats. If they want their people back, they will pay. Otherwise, Those 40,000 will serve the Dominion for the rest of their short lives. Daniel turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back at the High Sovereign. "You misunderstand," he said quietly. "That was not a negotiation. That was a warning. You should have listened." As Daniel's shuttle lifted off from Throne of Keth, he activated a small device hidden in his coat. It sent a single pulse into space. A quantum beacon. Faster than light. Impossible to trace. The message reached Earth in seconds. In the command center, Admiral Jack Morrison received it. He turned to his officers. "Signal the first expeditionary fleet. Protocol Crimson is now active." Across the solar system, ships began to move. 200 warships. The most powerful force humanity had ever assembled. They were called the Iron Fist. They had ended wars in days. They had brought empires to their knees, and now they had a new mission. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from 100 species watched the situation unfold. They had seen this before. A powerful nation takes hostages. A weaker nation negotiates. Lives are traded for resources. It was the way of the galaxy. "The humans will bargain," said the Kreth ambassador. "They always do. They value their people too much." "Perhaps," said the ancient Morvic delegate. "But I have heard stories about Earth. Stories of what they do when their children are threatened." "Stories," the Kreth scoffed. "Humans are young, soft. They have been in space for only 300 years. What could they possibly do against a Valoran Dominion?" The Morvic did not answer, but deep in his ancient eyes, there was something that looked like fear. Back on Throne of Keth, High Sovereign Maltric returned to his throne. He felt confident. Humans were known for diplomacy, for talking, for making deals. They would send more ambassadors. They would offer resources. Eventually, they would give him everything he wanted. He had no idea what was coming. In the darkness of space, the first expeditionary fleet began its journey. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Thunderbolt, the most powerful ship ever built by human hands. Around him, his crew worked in silence. They knew their mission. They knew what was at stake. "Admiral," said Captain Katie Lawson, his flag captain, "the fleet is ready. All 200 ships report combat status." Jack nodded slowly. "Set course for Valoran space. Maximum speed." "Sir, should we wait for diplomatic channels to—" "There will be no more diplomacy," Jack said. His voice was hard as steel. 40,000 of our people are in chains. Children are crying for their parents. That ends now. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light, and humanity's answer to the Valoran Dominion began its journey across the galaxy. They thought humans would bargain. They were wrong. The first expeditionary fleet moved through hyperspace like a pack of wolves hunting in the night. 200 ships, each one a weapon of terrible power. Each one crewed by men and women who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. Admiral Jack Morrison stood at the center of the Thunderbolt's bridge. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing the position of every ship in his fleet. 12 planet crackers formed the core of the formation. These were the largest vessels, each one capable of shattering a moon. 40 heavy cruisers surrounded them like guards. The rest were destroyers, frigates, and support ships. But the Thunderbolt was something else entirely. A dreadnought, the only one of her kind. She had been built in secret, deep in the shipyards of Mars. Her hull was made from metals that did not exist naturally in the universe. Her weapons could punch through any shield ever created. She was not just a ship. She was a message. "Admiral," said Commander Ryan Hughes, the tactical officer, "we will reach Valoran space in 18 hours. "Good," Jack replied. "What do we know about their defenses?" Commander Hughes pulled up a display. Intelligence reports suggest the Valoran fleet numbers around 800 combat vessels, mostly older designs. Their technology is approximately 2 centuries behind ours. 4-to-1 odds, said Captain Katie Lawson. They probably think that matters. Jack allowed himself a small smile. It might have mattered once. Not anymore. The crew worked around them with quiet efficiency. These were veterans. Many of them had served in the Kreth War 10 years ago. They remembered what the First Fleet had done then. An empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, destroyed in 48 hours. The Kreth had laughed at humanity too. They were not laughing anymore. In the communication center, Lieutenant Samantha Gray monitored the galactic networks. Reports were flooding in from every corner of known space. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting to see what Earth would do. "Sir," she said, "I'm picking up transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're sending warnings to the Valoran Dominion." "What kind of warnings?" Jack asked. Samantha listened for a moment. Her face grew pale. "They're telling the Valorans to release the hostages immediately. They're saying the humans are coming, and nothing can stop them." Vice Admiral Marcus Cole, Jack's second in command, stepped forward. "The galaxy remembers the Kreth War. They know what we're capable of. And yet the Valorans still took our people," Jack said. "Either they're stupid or they didn't believe the stories." "They'll believe soon enough," Katie said. On Throne of Keth, High Sovereign Maltric received the warnings from the Galactic Council. He read them in his private chambers, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. "The humans have deployed their war fleet," said his chief advisor, a thin Valoran with nervous eyes. 200 ships. They call it the Iron Fist. 200 ships against our 800, Maltric said. "Those are good odds." "My lord, the Council seems genuinely afraid. They speak of something called the Kreth War. They say the humans destroyed an entire empire in 2 days." Maltric waved his hand dismissively. "The Kreth were weak. They had grown soft over the centuries. We are not the Kreth, but my lord. Enough." Maltric roared. "I will not be frightened by stories. Humans are soft creatures from a soft world. They value their individual lives too much. That is their weakness. They will not risk their fleet when their people are in our hands." The advisor bowed low. "As you say, my lord." But doubt had planted its seed. And it would grow. Back on the Thunderbolt, Admiral Morrison called a meeting of all ship commanders. Their faces appeared on screens around the war room. Men and women of every background, united by a single purpose. "In 16 hours we will enter Valoran space," Jack began. "Our mission is simple. We will recover our people. All 40,000 of them. We will accept nothing less than complete success." "What about the Valoran fleet?" asked Commander Peterson of the cruiser Relentless. "They will try to stop us," Jack said. "They will fail. Rules of engagement, sir?" Jack's eyes hardened. "Any ship that fires on us will be destroyed. Any installation that threatens our people will be eliminated. But we are not here for revenge. We are here for rescue. Minimize civilian casualties where possible. We are soldiers, not murderers." The commanders nodded. They understood. This was what separated humans from species like the Valorans. Power without cruelty. Strength without evil. "One more thing," Jack said. "The Valorans have threatened to harm the hostages if we attack. They think this will make us hesitate. They think our love for our people makes us weak." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They are wrong. Our love for our people is not weakness. It is the source of our strength. We do not leave anyone behind. We do not abandon our children. And we do not bargain with those who would use innocence as shields." Admiral Morrison looked at each face on the screens. These were the best officers humanity had ever produced. They had trained for years. They had fought in a dozen conflicts. They were ready. When we arrive, Jack continued, the Valorans will have a choice. They can release our people and face judgment, or they can fight and face destruction. There is no third option. Captain Katie Lawson spoke up. Admiral, what if they start killing hostages? Colonel Derek Shaw and the 77th Marines are already preparing for a ground assault. The moment we engage the Valoran fleet, they will launch a rescue operation. We will hit them from space and from the ground at the same time. They will have no time to react. It's a bold plan, said Vice Admiral Cole. It's the only plan, Jack replied. These are our people. Failure is not an option. The meeting ended. The commanders returned to their ships. The fleet continued its journey through the endless dark dot in the cargo bay of the Thunderbolt. Colonel Derek Shaw addressed his Marines. 5,000 of the finest soldiers Earth had ever trained. They wore powered armor that made them faster, stronger, and harder to kill than any ordinary human. Their weapons could cut through steel like paper. Listen up, Shaw said. Somewhere out there, 40,000 of our people are waiting for us. Mothers, fathers, children. They're scared. They're alone. And they're counting on us. He walked among his soldiers, looking each one in the eye. The Valorans think they can use our people against us. They think we'll back down to protect them. They don't understand what that means. We don't back down. We run toward the danger. That's what being human means. The Marines stood at attention. Their faces were hard. Their eyes were ready. When we hit that ground, we hit it hard and fast. Find our people. Protect our people. Bring them home. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. The Marines shouted as one. Shaw nodded with approval. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we remind the galaxy what happens when you touch humanity's children. As the fleet raced toward Valoran space, the galaxy held its breath. Some species hoped the humans would fail. Others prayed they would succeed. But all of them understood one thing: that everything was about to change. The Valorans had made a terrible mistake, and they were about to learn that some species should never be provoked. Some species fight not for conquest or glory, but for something far more dangerous. They fight for family. The 72 hours passed. No hostages were released. On Throne of Keth, High Sovereign Maltrix sat on his bone throne and smiled. The humans had done nothing, just as he expected. Their threats were empty. Then the alarms began to scream. War Commander Sevik rushed into the throne room. His scales had turned pale with fear. My lord, the human fleet. They have entered our space. Maltrix stood from his throne. How many ships? 200, my lord. They jumped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. They are heading directly for the homeworld. For a moment, the High Sovereign felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. Then he pushed it away. 200 ships against our 800. Order the fleet to intercept. Destroy them all. My lord, perhaps we should reconsider. The hostages. The hostages are our shield. Maltrix roared. Tell the humans that if they come any closer, we will start executing prisoners. 10,000 per hour. Let them watch their people die. That will break their spirit. Sevik bowed and hurried away to deliver the message. In space, the first expeditionary fleet continued its advance. Admiral Jack Morrison received a Valoran transmission on the bridge of the Thunderbolt. The holographic image of War Commander Sevik appeared before him. Human Admiral, Sevik said, you have made a grave mistake. Turn back now, or we will begin executing your people. 10,000 every hour. Their blood will be on your hands. Jack studied the alien commander. He saw the fear hidden behind the tough words. The Valorans were scared. Good. Let me make something clear. Jack said calmly. Every human you harm will cost you a world. Every child you touch will cost you a fleet. This is not a threat. This is a promise. You have one chance to surrender. Take it. Sevik's image flickered with anger. You dare threaten us. We have 800 ships. You cannot possibly. Watch us, Jack said. He cut the transmission. Captain Katie Lawson looked at her admiral. They won't surrender. No, they won't. Not yet. Jack turned to his tactical officer. Commander Hughes, status of the Valoran fleet? 812 ships forming a defensive line between us and the planet, sir. Standard formation. They're grouping their heavy cruisers in the center with lighter vessels on the flanks. Predictable, Jack said. Signal the fleet. Formation Omega. We punch through the center. The first fleet moved like a single organism. Ships shifted position with perfect timing. The 12 planet crackers formed a wedge at the front. The Thunderbolt took the lead. Across the galaxy, observers watched in fascination. Ships from a dozen neutral species had positioned themselves at safe distances. They wanted to see what the humans would do. Many still believed Earth would back down. Humans were known for diplomacy, not war. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Valoran fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams lanced across space. Missiles by the hundreds streaked toward the human ships. It was a wall of destruction that would have devastated any other fleet in the galaxy. The human shields held. Return fire, Admiral Morrison ordered. The Thunderbolt's main battery spoke. Beams of concentrated energy, so bright they seemed like pieces of captured stars, cut through the darkness. The first Valoran cruiser exploded before its crew even knew they were hit. Then another. And another. The human fleet advanced through the enemy fire like it was nothing. Their shields absorbed impacts that should have torn them apart. Their weapons struck with precision that seemed impossible. Each shot found its target. Each target died. 30 enemy vessels destroyed, Commander Hughes reported. 40, 50. They're breaking formation. War Commander Sevik watched in horror from his flagship. His ships were dying faster than he could count. The humans were not slowing down. They were not stopping. They moved through his fleet like fire through dry grass. How is this possible? He whispered. No one could answer him. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Admiral Morrison stood calm amid the chaos of battle. Screens flashed with damage reports, not from his ships, but from the enemy. The first fleet was performing exactly as trained. Admiral, said Lieutenant Gray from communications, the Valorans are broadcasting a message to the planet. They're ordering the execution of hostages. Jack's eyes turned cold. Colonel Shaw, are your Marines ready? Colonel Derek Shaw's voice came through the speakers. Loaded and ready, sir. 20 dropships. 5,000 Marines. Give the word. The word is given. Launch immediately. Dr. Trent, have your medical teams standing by. Already prepared, Admiral, said Dr. Nicole Trent from the medical bay. We're ready to receive the hostages. 20 small ships burst from the fleet's carriers. They were fast and heavily armored, designed to punch through planetary defenses and deliver soldiers directly into combat. The Valoran defense satellites tried to intercept them. The fleet's cruisers destroyed the satellites before they could fire. On the surface of Throne of Keth, alarms blared in the detention center where the human prisoners were held. Valoran guards ran through the corridors, weapons drawn. They had orders to begin executions. A young Valoran soldier approached the cell holding the children. His hands shook. Inside, frightened faces looked up at him. Human children. Some were crying. Some held each other. One little girl, no more than 6 years old, stood at the front. She was not crying. She was staring at him with eyes that held no fear. The humans are coming for us, she said. You should run. The soldier, hesitated. Then the ceiling exploded. Colonel Shaw dropped through the hole, his powered armor absorbing the impact. Behind him came his Marines, moving with speed that seemed impossible. They spread through the building like water through cracks. "Protect the civilians," Shaw ordered. "Non-lethal on the guards unless they resist." The Valoran guards tried to fight. Their weapons bounced off the human armor. Their claws could not penetrate the metal. One by one, they fell stunned, not killed. The humans were showing mercy. They did not deserve. Shaw reached the children's cell. He tore the door off its hinges and stepped inside. The children looked up at him with wide eyes. The little girl smiled. "I told him you were coming," she said. Shaw knelt down to her level. Despite his massive armor, his voice was gentle. "You were right. We're taking you home. All of you." Back in space, the battle had become a slaughter. The Valoran fleet, once 800 strong, had lost half its ships in less than an hour. The survivors were in full retreat. War Commander Sevic's flagship was surrounded. "Surrender now," Admiral Morrison transmitted. "Your fleet is broken. Your soldiers have failed. This ends only one way." On his crippled ship, Sevic lowered his head. He had never surrendered in his life. Neither had any Valoran commander in 10,000 years. But today, there was no other choice. "I surrender," he said. "The fleet surrenders. And your sovereign? Will he surrender the hostages?" Sevic's voice was bitter. "The sovereign does not surrender. But it no longer matters. Your soldiers are already inside." On the surface, Colonel Shaw and his Marines had secured the detention center. 40,000 humans, men, women, and children were being led to safety. Medical teams moved among them, treating injuries, offering comfort. Many were crying, but these were tears of joy, not sorrow. They were going home. High Sovereign Maltric watched from his palace as his world crumbled around him. His fleet was destroyed. His soldiers had failed. And the humans were coming for him. He could run. He could hide. But he knew, deep in his ancient heart, that there was nowhere in the galaxy where the humans would not find him. They had come for their people, and they would not leave until justice was served. The sky above Throne of Keth burned with the wreckage of the Valoran fleet. Pieces of destroyed ships fell like burning rain. On the ground, the citizens of the capital looked up in terror. Their mighty armada, 800 ships strong, had been broken in less than 2 hours. The humans had lost only 4 vessels, and all their crews had been evacuated before the ships were destroyed. In the detention center, Colonel Derek Shaw oversaw the rescue operation. His Marines moved with calm efficiency, guiding the freed prisoners toward the landing zones. Medical teams worked everywhere, checking for injuries, giving water and food to those who needed it. A young woman named Grace approached the colonel. She was clutching a small child to her chest. The boy could not have been more than 3 years old. His eyes were red from crying. "Are you really taking us home?" Grace asked. Her voice shook with hope and fear. Shaw removed his helmet so she could see his face. A human face. "Yes, ma'am. All of you. Every single person. I promise." Grace began to cry. The child in her arms reached out and touched Shaw's armored hand. The colonel gently took the small fingers in his massive grip. "You're safe now," he said. "No one will hurt you again." Across the city, chaos reigned. Valoran soldiers threw down their weapons and fled. The news of the fleet's destruction had spread like wildfire. The unthinkable had happened. The Dominion had been defeated, and by only 200 ships. High Sovereign Maltric stood in his throne room. The great hall was empty now. His advisors had fled. His guards had abandoned their posts. Only he remained, surrounded by the bones of his enemies, waiting for the end that he knew was coming. The doors burst open. Captain Katie Lawson walked into the throne room. Behind her came a squad of armed Marines. She was not wearing her captain's uniform. She was wearing combat armor just like her soldiers. She had wanted to be here, to see this moment with her own eyes. Maltrick looked at the human woman. She was small, fragile-looking. In his prime, he could have torn her apart with his bare claws. But those days were gone, and the weapon in her hand could end him in an instant. "High Sovereign Maltrick," Katie said, "by order of the United Earth Government, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. You will face trial for the kidnapping and imprisonment of 40,000 innocent people." Maltrick laughed. It was a hollow, bitter sound. "Arrest? You think your laws apply to me? I am the High Sovereign. I have ruled for 300 years. You have nothing," Katie cut him off. "Your fleet is gone. Your army has surrendered. Your empire is finished. Right now, the only thing standing between you and death is my mercy. Don't test it." For a long moment, Maltrick stared at the human captain. He saw no fear in her eyes, no hesitation, only cold, hard purpose. This was not a woman who would be intimidated. This was a warrior. Slowly, Maltrick sank to his knees. For the first time in 3 centuries, the High Sovereign bowed before another being. "I surrender," he said quietly. Katie nodded to her Marines. They moved forward and secured the prisoner. As they led him away, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. Justice would be served. In orbit above the planet, Admiral Jack Morrison received the news. The Sovereign was captured. All hostages were accounted for. The mission was a complete success. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Gray, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Everyone is watching. They want to know what happens next." Jack thought about this for a moment. The galaxy was watching. This was more than just a rescue mission now. This was a message. "Open a channel," he said. "Broadcast to all frequencies. Let everyone hear this." The lieutenant nodded and activated the communications array. Jack stepped forward, knowing that his words would reach every corner of known space. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Navy 1st Expeditionary Fleet. 72 hours ago, the Valaran Dominion took 40,000 of our people. They believed we would bargain for their return. They believed our love for our people made us weak." He paused, letting his words carry across the stars. "They were wrong. Let this be a lesson to every power watching. Humanity does not bargain for its people. We do not trade worlds for lives. We do not negotiate with those who would use innocence as shields. We come for them, and we bring the fire with us." On 100 worlds, beings of every species listened. Some nodded with respect. Others trembled with fear. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed. A new power had risen, and they were not to be taken lightly. "The Valaran Dominion will face justice for its crimes," Jack continued. "But let me be clear. We did not come here for revenge. We came for our people. Every soldier who surrendered has been treated fairly. Every civilian has been protected. We are not conquerors. We are not tyrants. But we will never, ever abandon those who need us." He thought of the children in the detention center, of the mothers and fathers who had been separated from their families, of the fear they must have felt, alone in the darkness, wondering if anyone would come for them. To anyone who might think of testing us in the future, remember this day. Remember what happened when you touched our children. Remember the fire that fell from the sky. And ask yourself if it's worth the cost. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the galaxy. On the surface of Throne of Keth, the evacuation was nearly complete. Transport ships carried the freed prisoners up to the fleet's medical vessels. Dr. Nicole Trent worked tirelessly, coordinating care for those who needed it most. Many of the hostages had been beaten. Some had been starved. A few had injuries that would take months to heal. But all of them were alive. All of them were going home. Grace, the young mother, sat in a medical shuttle with her son asleep in her lap. She looked out the window at the ruined Valoran city below. She should have felt anger, hatred. The Valorans had taken everything from her. They had made her fear for her child's life. But all she felt was gratitude. Gratitude for the soldiers who had come for her. Gratitude for the fleet that had crossed the galaxy to bring her home. Gratitude for being human. A Marine sat down beside her. It was Colonel Shaw, his armor now stained with dust from the battle. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. Grace smiled through her tears. "I didn't think anyone was coming. When they put us in those cells, I thought we'd been forgotten." Shaw shook his head. "You were never forgotten. Not for a single moment. The entire human race was thinking about you. The entire fleet crossed the galaxy for you. We would have gone to the end of the universe if we had to." "Why?" Grace asked. "Why go so far for strangers?" The colonel looked at the sleeping child. His eyes softened. "Because you're not strangers. You're family. Every human, everywhere, is family. And we don't leave family behind." Grace took his hand. No words were needed. As the last transport lifted off from Throne of Keth, the sun began to set. The purple sky turned to gold, then to darkness. The Valoran Dominion, once a proud empire, lay in ruins. Their fleet was destroyed. Their leader was in chains. Their power was broken. And in the cold vastness of space, the first expeditionary fleet began its journey home. 200 ships, thousands of crew members, 40,000 rescued souls. They had come across the galaxy to answer a simple question: what happens when you touch humanity's children? Now the entire galaxy knew the answer. Fire. Fire is what happens. The journey home took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of healing. 3 weeks of recovery. 3 weeks of processing what had happened and what it meant. In the medical bays of the fleet, Dr. Nicole Trent and her teams worked around the clock. The physical wounds were the easy part. Broken bones could be set. Cuts could be cleaned and stitched. Infections could be treated with medicine. But the wounds that couldn't be seen, those took longer. Counselors moved among the survivors, talking to them, listening to them, helping them make sense of their experience. Many had nightmares. Some couldn't sleep at all. The children were the hardest. They had seen things that no child should ever see. But slowly, day by day, they began to heal. The sound of laughter returned to the ships. Families reunited. Friends found each other. Life went on. Admiral Jack Morrison visited the survivors whenever he could. He walked through the medical bays, stopping to talk with those who wanted to share their stories. An old man thanked him with tears in his eyes. A young boy asked if he could touch his medals. A mother simply held his hand and said nothing. Each encounter reminded him why he had chosen this life, why he had dedicated himself to protecting others, why he had led his fleet across the galaxy. This was why. When the fleet finally reached Earth, the entire planet was waiting for them. Ships filled the space around the homeworld. Crowds gathered in every city. The survivors were brought down in shuttles, each one greeted like a returning hero. Grace stepped off her shuttle with her son in her arms. Her mother was waiting for her. The older woman ran forward crying and wrapped her daughter in an embrace that seemed to last forever. "I thought I lost you," her mother sobbed. "I thought I'd never see you again." "They came for us," Grace whispered. "They crossed the galaxy, and they came for us." All around them, similar scenes played out. Husbands finding wives. Parents finding children. Friends finding each other. It was a day of joy. a day of celebration, a day that humanity would never forget. But there was also justice to be served. High Sovereign Maltric was brought to Earth in chains. He stood trial before the United Earth Court, facing charges of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and crimes against humanity. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the once proud ruler answered for his actions. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimonies were damning. Survivor after survivor took the stand and described what they had endured. The fear, the pain, the hopelessness, and then the moment when the ceiling exploded and human soldiers came to save them. Maltric offered no defense. What could he say? He had believed humans were weak. He had believed they would bargain. He had been wrong about everything. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Maltric was not executed. That was not the human way. Instead, he was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a prison facility, watching as the galaxy moved on without him. His empire was dissolved. His people were left to rebuild under new leadership. The Valoran Dominion became a memory dot in the Galactic Council chambers. Representatives gathered to discuss the implications of what had happened. The balance of power had shifted. A new force had emerged. Ambassador Daniel Price took his seat among the delegates. Other ambassadors stood when he entered. They had not done that before. Earth requests the floor, he said calmly. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to him. What happened with the Valoran Dominion was a tragedy, Daniel began. 40,000 innocent people were taken from their homes. Families were torn apart. Children were imprisoned. This should never have happened. He paused, looking around the chamber. But it did happen. And now the galaxy must ask itself why. Why did the Valorans believe they could take our people without consequence? Why did they think we would bargain for lives that should never have been in danger? No one answered. The silence was heavy. The answer is simple. They underestimated us. They saw a young species, barely 3 centuries in space, and they assumed we were weak. They assumed our love for our people was a vulnerability to be exploited. Daniel's voice grew stronger. They were wrong. Our love is not our weakness. It is our greatest strength. It is what drove us to cross the galaxy. It is what gave our soldiers the courage to face impossible odds. It is what makes us human. He stood from his seat and addressed the entire assembly. Let this be a warning to any who would follow in the Valorans' footsteps. Humanity will not be tested. Our people will not be taken. Our children will not be threatened. If anyone in this galaxy makes that mistake again, they will face the same fate as the Valoran Dominion. He sat back down. No one challenged him. No one argued. The message had been received. Months later, life had returned to normal. The colony of New Haven was rebuilt. The survivors had gone back to their homes. The first expeditionary fleet had returned to its duties, watching over humanity's corner of the galaxy. On a small planet in a distant system, a young Valoran sat with his grandfather. They were watching the stars come out, one by one, filling the sky with light. "Grandfather," the young one asked, "why does everyone fear the humans?" The old Valoran was quiet for a long moment. He had lived through the fall of the Dominion. He had seen the human fleet in action. He had witnessed things that still haunted his dreams. "Because they are different from us," he finally said. "Different from every species in the galaxy." "Different how?" "Most species fight for power, for territory, for resources. Humans fight for something else." "What?" "Each other." The old Valoran looked up at the stars. "They are the only species in the galaxy that loves their own more than they fear death. And they have the power to prove it. That is what makes them dangerous. That is what makes them unstoppable." The young Valoran thought about this. "Should we be afraid of them?" "No, his grandfather said. We should simply never give them a reason to come for us. Because if we do, they will come. And nothing in the universe can stop them. Far across the galaxy, Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt. The ship was docked at Earth Station Prime, getting some well-deserved repairs and upgrades. Through the viewport, he could see the blue marble of humanity's homeworld. Captain Katie Lawson joined him. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their planet turn slowly below. Think anyone will try something like this again? Katie asked. Jack considered the question. Maybe. There are always those who don't learn from history. But I think the galaxy got the message. And if they didn't? The Admiral smiled. It was not a warm smile. Then we'll deliver it again, as many times as necessary. He turned away from the viewport and walked toward the bridge exit. At the door, he paused and looked back at his captain. The galaxy thought we would bargain, Katie. They thought our humanity made us weak. But that's the thing about humans. We're at our strongest when we're fighting for those we love. They forgot what we are. And what are we, Admiral? Jack's eyes held a fierce light. We're human, and we never leave anyone behind. He stepped through the door and was gone. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, waiting, wondering if humanity would ever show weakness. They would be waiting for a very long time. The humans had sent their message, and the galaxy would never forget it. They thought humans would bargain. They were wrong.